So what I want to start out with is a little audience participation to get you guys thinking a little bit. And Stacy's going to be my Vanna White. And let's start off, if anybody wants just to list off some lies that we think of when we think about marriage, or misperceptions. We got misperceptions or lies to the left and truths on the right. No political association at all. So, lies about marriage. Anybody want to throw one out, something that you think is prevalent in our society that is not maybe biblically true or true for yourself?
Give us a example of the way you're thinking.
Well, the way I'm thinking, okay. I'll talk about this later in my presentation, but one of the most pernicious lies that I'm aware of is, if you marry the right person, you'll be happy forever. Okay? That's one thing our society tells us. But we know the opposite truth of that is that marriage is work. It takes a little bit of work at it. Yeah, you write that down.
One I think of is that husband and wife are always kind of fighting.
Okay.
And I guess I don't see that.
Always fighting.
On sitcoms, they always are.
You will always feel in love with your spouse?
That's always feel in love. That's a lie.
Oh, that's a lie.
That's a lie.
Anybody want to refute that? You're always going to feel in love?
In love, but not in like, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
While we're doing this project, I can start another one simultaneously. What I have here is a 500-piece puzzle. There seems to be a lot of knowledge at this table.
Oh.
So, I already got you started. So go ahead and put it together.
Oh.
Let me know if there's anything you need to put that together.
Oh, and I have something to say, and now I forgot.
Any truths that we can think of that are about marriage? Marriage is work. We already talked about that. That marriage is not just something
Marriage takes a
just
lot
happens.
of compromise.
Compromise.
A lot of giving.
Giving. Giving without the expectation of getting something in return.
Right.
Okay. How's that puzzle? Is there something that you want for that puzzle? What would make that puzzle easier? Anybody else want to?
The picture.
Right.
If it were already put together.
If you had the box top, maybe
Yes,
would that make it
you do what it
easier?
was supposed to look like, yes.
It's a good analogy towards marriages in America is that we have a 500-piece puzzle we're trying to put together, but we have no idea what it's supposed to look like. We don't have the box top. So you don't have to put it together. Now you're
I
dreaming.
know they're
Yeah.
busy.
Now we
Got a
gotta
couple
get it put
pieces.
together just to show you.
Yeah.
So,
Can you put a puzzle together without the box top?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Ah,
Is it easier with the picture? Yeah. Okay.
It's much easier if it's a little kid's puzzle that has great big giant pieces too.
I had a 100-piece puzzle, but I figured you would have put that together
what
too
you
easily.
when you got about a 5-piece puzzle
Okay.
With the frame.
the brain frame?
We'll come back to that analogy in a minute, but here's another example. This is my user guide for a TV I purchased. User guide for a dishwasher, even got a user guide for a toaster oven. So anytime you get something new in your life, you usually get a user's manual to go with it, right? But when I got married, there was no user's manual. So I went back to the manufacturer. And I said, hey, you know what, great product, I love it, it's beautiful. There's a few features about it I don't understand. You got the manual? Yeah. Did you get a manual for your wife? Damn. So there's something wrong there where we're trying to make things work, but we don't know how it's supposed to look, how it's supposed to get put together, or we don't have a manual to live by. And that's where I'm going to point to the Holy Bible, where there are verses and passages in here that will give us a picture of what our marriage is supposed to look like. Give us an idea of how to be married together. This is kind of a user's manual for your life. I want to play a a little video clip here might highlight a little more what I'm talking about with this confusion that we have with trying to communicate our love for each other's spouses. Anybody remembers the 1965 film with Jimmy Stewart called Shenandoah? And he's talking to his, whoops, that's not the one. He's talking to his future son-in-law here, giving him some fatherly advice.
It's no easy job, Sam, taking care of a woman. No, sir. Yeah. They expect things they never asked for. And when they don't get them, they ask you why. Sometimes they don't ask. And they just go ahead and punish you for not doing something you didn't know you were supposed to do in the first place. What, for instance, sir? Well, that's a very difficult question to answer. You're never quite sure. It's just that it's sort of, you might say, relative. Relative to what, sir? To how they're feeling at the moment. And how's that? You never know. I don't believe I really understand what you're trying to tell me, sir. I know. I never understood it myself. I never understood it. It's just one of those things, Sam. It's around. Just don't ever see it. I suppose Jenny started to cry one day. You don't know what she's crying about, so you ask her why. Do you follow me, Sam? Yes, sir. You ask her, and she won't tell you. And that's when you ask her what it was you did that caused her to cry. She still won't tell you. And that's when you start to get angry. But don't get angry, Sam. She won't tell you why she's crying because she doesn't know. Women are like that, Sam. And it's exasperating. It's But don't let it make you angry. No. When she gets like that, just walk up and hug her a little bit. Because that's all they really want when they're like that, Sam. A little loving. You understand me, don't you? No, sir.
There's something else you must remember. Husbands like to be alone once in a while. Why? You never know why. But I can always tell when James wants to be alone. The mood comes over him. I can always see it in his eyes before it really gets there. I don't know where the mood comes from or why. That's when I leave him alone. It seems sometimes things get so thick around a man that he comes to feel that everything is closing in on him. And that's when he wants to be left alone. You understand, don't you? No.
So, even though we may have gotten some advice in the past, we probably just weren't ready to receive it. We didn't understand. So, no, we didn't. We don't always get it. There's a lot of topics here. I got a lot of resources out on the table, and a lot of them, they all kind of talk with great information. Let me go into my PowerPoint here. So, talked about that a little bit there. Pernicious lie. And this is something that really, you are determined to get that puzzle together. Pernicious lie. If you marry the right person, you will be happy. If your marriage is not full of happiness, you must have married the wrong person. Before I go to the next slide, anybody can tell what's wrong with that statement?
You'll never be happy with any person all the time.
It's true. We're all different human beings with different connections. Just like that puzzle, that all the pieces perfectly interlock. Unfortunately, with we don't always have that with our spouse. We're designed to interlock with each other, but they're not perfectly interlocking pieces all the time. So the analogy is a little lost there. But we are designed to be connected to one another. There's always little nits and fits between a man and a woman. And if you know how they work together, they can be a beautiful thing. But if you don't know how to fit them together, they will cause friction in your marriage. The truth, if you are not working towards oneness, you will naturally drift apart. Think about the type of person you were 10, 15, 20 years ago. What were your political beliefs? Your social economic status? Your type of brand loyalty to products, things that we've been introduced to, your education. Have you changed? Are you the exact same person you were when you got married? The answer is going to be no, because people change. They have different beliefs and structures. They understand things. They grow. They mature spiritually. So, think about a friendship that you had when you were in your teenagers, early 20s, that you haven't seen the person for a long time. And how's that relationship with them now? Do you have anything in common anymore? Or have you kind of drifted apart? That's where this statement really stands out. If you're not working towards oneness, you will naturally drift apart. There's no coasting. Okay? That makes sense, everybody? Do you agree with that statement? Great example Stacy has. She has a friend from high school, and they made it a point to get together once a month. They meet. She lives in St. Bonnie, we live here, so they meet in Hutchinson once a month to try and keep that relationship together. Otherwise, there would be no relationship anymore. Same thing in marriage. If you're not constantly striving to improve your relationship, understanding each other, you're naturally going to drift apart. Okay. So, let's look a little bit at God's purpose for marriage. And I think it's beautiful that there are three purposes. It kind of mirrors the Holy Trinity. So the first purpose is to mirror God's image with the relationship with the spouse and children. Mirrors relationship with the Holy Trinity. Okay? Second purpose, to mutually complete one another. And that's where these puzzle pieces lock in together to try and make a full picture. And the third purpose, to multiply a godly legacy. Now there's a lot more detail to each one of these purposes that we can go in at another time. Like I said, I'm just trying to whet your appetite for this subject a little bit. All right, so let's go see. Here's a question I want to pose to the group. Did God create a soulmate for you? So if you want to look up those two Bible verses, the Bible tables, and get a couple volunteers to read Mark 12:25 and Galatians 3:28.
Pass the Bible around.
You guys are doing pretty good.
That curtain over there,
Oh, you're doing Mark?
that shade behind that thing, on that your side, just go back down. Tell Jacob.
Jake, could you pull that shade down on this side?
Right?
Is that better?
Ah, that's good. Look, another one.
Okay, anybody want to read Mark 12:25?
I can read it.
Okay.
For when they raise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven.
Okay. That passage is from when Sadducees were testing Jesus and asking him about, okay, there was a woman who was married to different men in their lifetime. Now when she dies and comes back resurrected, whose wife should she be? And that's where he was referring to. You are neither given nor marriage, there's no married in heaven. Okay? What's Galatians say? Anybody else want to say, read that?
I've got it here. There is no longer Jew or Greek, there is no longer slave or free, there is no longer male or female, for all of you are one in Christ Jesus.
Okay. So now in light of those two scripture passages, how do we want to answer that question? There's two ways of really answering that, depending on how you want to interpret the question. So in a general sense, did God create a soulmate for you while you're here on earth? Is there somebody that can complete your life? And that question would, answer that question, while you're here in this life, there probably is somebody that's going to be a good match for you. But is there just a one perfect match? That one soulmate that God created just intentionally for you, and it's your purpose in life to go out and find that person? The answer to that, I believe, is no.
No.
I believe that two well-intentioned Christians any two well-intentioned Christians, as long as there is some basis, and we can get into those in more detail, but as long as there's some basis for a relationship, can make it work. There's not the one soulmate, like that first slide we talk about. You must have married the wrong person because you're not happy all the time. We're looking for the one. I don't believe there is something like that. There isn't the one. There is probably an abundance of people we can get along with. It's like unity in Christ. Everybody on board with that? Does that make sense? I'm not right?
Yeah, well, and when my husband was talking to his dad about proposing to me, because, you know, he's kind of like that, I'll talk to his dad first.
Yeah.
And his dad said, there's not one person out there for you, but you make that person the one. Love
Right.
more as a choice than as a, you know, falling into things. I thought that
tend
was
to-
pretty good advice.
Yeah, we tend to romanticize. That's the word. Things in our society today. So, men and women are obviously different. They have different needs, different thought processes. We think differently. There's a lot of topics there too about looking at gender speak and the way women talk. When women say something, what they mean, and what men say the same thing may mean something totally different. We touched on that subject a little bit last year when I gave the money talk. How money looks different to men and women. An example of that is women tend to look at money more as a security thing, where men tend to look at money more as a scorecard. How well am I doing in life is how much I've accumulated in my bank account, maybe. Okay? So those are two differences there. In the book, this book has been around for a while. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. It's a great book. It's written by Dr. John Gray. He lists out 12 love needs, 6 of them being mainly feminine, 6 of them being mainly masculine. And he really, although I think this is a great book and explains a lot of stuff, one of the things it explains in there is why men don't like to ask for directions and why they feel insulted when their women try to tell them where to go, how to get there. But I think this right here, although it's very intricate, I think he overcomplicated it just a little bit. He has a lot of stuff in here. A book that I just listened to recently, I have it on audio, somewhere in the mix here. It's called Love and Respect. And it's written by Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. And he basically just puts it down to this. Women primarily need love. Men primarily need respect. Okay? Let's look at Ephesians 5:33, because that's where he bases his whole book off of. And if somebody wants to read 5:33 for me. Here it is. Any volunteers? Okay.
Each of you, however, should love his wife and himself, and the wife should respect her husband.
Okay. Paul puts it out there pretty simply. Each of you should love your wife as yourself, and each wife should love their husband. Now, if I remember right, the Greek word that's used here is agape. What's agape mean? Yeah, or unconditional love. So, I guess the question then would be, does your wife have to earn the love before you give it to her? You need to give her the love unconditionally, even if she's being disrespectful to you at the time and you're upset with her. You need to love her unconditionally. Paul doesn't really point that same word. There isn't a word for unconditional respect. But if we look at 1 Peter 3, 1 through 7, we won't read the whole thing. But 1 Peter 3, 1 through 7 really talks about women submitting to your husbands as they were the masters. And it refers to Abraham and Sarah. And Sarah calling him master. And he would just, hey, we're going to move over here. God told me to come. And she just packed up and went. And showed them all the respect in the world, even though she's probably going, you're crazy. So there's that unconditional love, unconditional respect. So wives, That's another thing. Does your husband have to earn the respect before you give it to him? You may have to respect your husband unconditionally. Now, this is with the intention, and this whole book is written on the thought process that we have two good-willed individuals. They don't have any malice towards one another. That they can make the relationship work based on this premise. So, unconditional love, unconditional respect. Really make it quite simple there. Boils it right down. Anybody have any comments on that or questions? Is this, I'm really simplifying a large book here.
Well, I think, you know, the thing that, one of the lies that gets told about marriage is that, okay, well, here's the truth, is that you have to have both pieces there. If there's just one person doing all that work, it's not gonna work. So you're not going to be able to have a healthy marriage if, you know, you get the man is unconditionally loving the woman, but the woman still doesn't respect the man, or vice versa. You know, there are lies out there that say, well, women, if your husband is a jerk to you, it's because you're not a good wife. You know, or if your husband beats you, you have to be a better wife. Those lies are still out there. So I think that's one of the things that I appreciate you pointing out, is that it only works if both partners are doing this together.
He refers to it as a crazy cycle. You get on a crazy cycle, I'm not going to love you until he respects me, or until I get some respect. Vice versa, I'm not going to show respect until I get some love, and you get on this crazy cycle. So one person, you can't expect it in return. You have to be able to give it unconditionally without respecting it in return. And you get on what's called, he calls it energizing cycle. He actually talks about the energizing cycle and then getting onto a spiritual cycle. But there is a breaking point, and that's a whole other topic for discussion. Like I said, we're going over a quick survey of this stuff, but that really is the essence of it, is love and respect. I have another one here. That's the end of that. I have another video here that I want to put up that's kind of humorous. And it might explain some things to you.
How many times does this happen to you?
You know, our babies sleep really, really good.
Or this.
Make sure Timmy wears the blue shirt.
Or even this.
For my birthday, which is next month, I'd really like some.
Do you have trouble listening or retaining information from your wife? You could be suffering from spousal selective listening, or SSL. With SSL, valuable input is intercepted or scrambled before it reaches the critical learning center of the man brain. Virtually anything can trigger it, like sports, food, even shiny objects with buttons. Fortunately, there is help with Heritol. Containing a rare root with an exotic name, Heritol helps men focus and listen to valuable female input, even pick up on those subtle hints.
These are exactly the earrings I wanted. How did you know?
Thanks, Heritol. Now I can hear it all. Heritol has not been tested or approved for agency. Side effects of Heritol include minor to severe headaches and spontaneous combustion. Use caution when using Heritol in your mother's-in-law, as you may hear hurtful comments that would seriously been ignored. Heritol do not use around children or clusters of talk nibble, blue hair permanent. If focused listening lasts longer than 4 hours, consult your doctor immediately before your wife assumes this is a new standard in your relationship. Men with wives who are nursing or pregnant should not take this product. Heritol, the preferred selection or solution for selective hearing.
Yeah, ignore that last part. So, you might want to buy that product? I don't know. It sounded interesting until I found out I could spontaneously combust around my mother-in-law. I got through this a lot quicker than I thought it would, but we can open this up for anybody who wants some more discussion. But like I said, the purpose of this was not to really explain a whole lot, but maybe whet your appetites for something more. And one option that we do have that I would like to look into further, since Stacy and I were away at that weekend, Remember Getaway, is we picked up a kit called the Art of Marriage. And it's actually shaped like a briefcase, because what it's designed to do is we can bring the weekend, instead of going away for a weekend, remember, we can actually bring it here. This particular kit is formatted for a Friday night, Saturday type of deal. We can do it all in one day, Saturday, where we do it here in the church. So if that's something that interests people, let me know. We can try and put together something. But I'm a little leery about how much participation we could actually get off of this. Something else we could do though is play some video clips out of this during our educational hour we have every Sunday morning. So that's something we can look at too. It's also available though if anybody wants to check it out. I'm going to have it in the library, so if you want to take it home for individual use as well. But I would encourage people to really think about getting away for a weekend. If you're sitting here at home, there's already too many other stresses. This is just an example of something that's put on by Family Life Today. And it's a weekend, remember? You go away to a nice hotel for the weekend. It's a Friday night, all day Saturday. Saturday you go on a date night with your wife. And then part of the day on Sunday we do some devotions. And I didn't bring it with, but we actually entered into a new marriage contract when we were there that weekend. The speakers are ordained ministers, so they actually did a live group session marriage. So it's kind of interesting. This weekend is designed for people who have been married for years or premaritals as well, too. They have premarital breakout sessions. And you want to tell your story about the couple you met?
On our way home, we were in the elevator with a couple that had been married 54 years. And they really enjoyed it. They thought they'd learned some things from that weekend. And they said they could have used it 30 years ago. But, you know, they were really out 30 years ago. So.
That's still amazing to me to think. You've been married how long, and you learned, what could you have learned in a weekend that 54 years of marriage didn't already teach you? But they said they took away a lot. And I think Stacy and I are looking at going again, because I believe that you can always learn more about coming together in oneness. Like I said earlier, if you're not working towards oneness, you will naturally drift apart. I think it's a very important thing in our society that we overlook a lot of. That we think that if we get married, things are just going to work, and you know, we'll combine our checking accounts, have a few kids, and then you go to work, I go to work, we'll share the same bed together, and we don't have this working towards oneness thing. There's a few projects that they have you do in this book, and one of them is actually, I think during Saturday morning, we separate, go to our own little portion of the hotel. Some of us went back to the room, and we write a love letter to our significant other. Stacy and I just sat down and actually discussed it because we didn't feel comfortable writing it all out. But discovered a few things because we actually got into a fight Friday night trying to get there. I tell you, I won't go into all the details of it, but if I didn't have money invested in this hotel in the weekend to get away, I would turn our car around the left because we were running late. And bottom line, what was going on is I felt disrespected because we were running late, and because of my attitude of how I was driving and knowing she was going to get car sick, she felt unloved. And that's what caused a lot of friction right there between us. And we were both ready to turn around and go home. But, then, you know, we learned a lot that weekend.
But you got through it, right?
We got through it.
That's a key in marriage,
Yeah.
getting through the difficulties.
Any other topics you want to bring up missing? There's such a lot of stuff on this, and we do have a little bit of time left. But
What's the number one reasons for people getting divorced? Then? Is it money or unfaithfulness? Or?
Money is a big cause of divorce. Or they'll say it is a big reason for divorce is money, but actually it's not really the money itself is why you're getting divorced.
Happiness.
It's the disagreement of how to spend the money. And there again, it leads to oneness. So I believe all of the divorces really come down to not having this oneness and this interconnection, locking the puzzle pieces together.
Why do most of them say, I want to be happy?
They don't feel like they're happy in their current marriage.
Yeah.
And it goes to that relationship issue right there. And that's a whole other thing we can get into, a whole other topic about God's provisions for happiness in this life. And what the Bible really says about us being happy in this world. Remember, we do live in a broken world. But yeah, if they might find happiness somewhere else, a lot of that might be infidelity. They found someone else who's showing them the love or giving them the respect that they desire that they're not getting necessarily from their spouse at home. And so that would cause a break in the relationship. But we found that the statistics will show that it takes about 7 years for a marriage to really come together to start forming oneness. And what they found too is when it comes to a second marriage, it takes up to 14 years. It's like double in length. So the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Right.
Remember that movie with Michelle Pfeiffer and Bruce Willis? Can't end the movie. But at the end of the movie, these two were talking about getting divorced, and throughout the whole movie, they're sending the kids away, trying to figure out how they're going to come through this marriage. And at the end, she kind of breaks down and starts crying. And some of the words she says is, you know, I'm always going to find imperfections in anybody that I'm married to, so why don't I just stay married to you? Because we already know each other so well. I don't want to start over somewhere else, is basically what she was kind of saying. I don't remember the title of the movie, but it's a good movie. I should have brought the clip in because it's pretty good. All right. The next weekend, Remember Getaway is coming up that we're thinking about going to. It's going to be in Sioux Falls, and I believe it's the weekend before Thanksgiving. So I'm actually looking forward to it. We haven't booked it yet, but I think we're going to just do it. It's one of those things where if you don't just plan it out and do it, you'll probably never make it. We do have a group rate. If you go on to familylife.com, want to log into it, start booking it, and it'll ask you if you have a group discount. It's SveaSweethearts. So I try to change the spelling. It's SW, but I try to change it to SV, but they couldn't get it quite in the program. But it should start coming up as you're typing it in. SveaSweethearts, one word. That will get you, I believe it's an $80 per person discount, so it'll save you about $160 to go on this retreat, so it brings the price down. But another thing that's nice about this group rate is if we have 10 couples that use this rate, and Stacy and I already used it once, so we just need 9 more people to do it, we get 1 free weekend, and we can send someone else on, like a scholarship program. So I encourage everybody to look into it. It's something that's we found quite helpful. If anybody wants to borrow any of this material, I know Stacy and I are still reading some of it. We're going to put it in the library. Otherwise, I have audio books for the guys. We have reading material for the girls. That's just the way it worked out for us. I listen to books, she reads them. This is actually a really good one, though. It's written by Shanti and Jeff Fieldman. This is the men's version for men only, and there's a book there for women only. And she does a real good job of laying out some of the things that men need to know that women actually need, and vice versa. Shanti actually points out in an interview at the end that she's been asked to write another book for women only in the workplace, because women tend to sabotage their careers in the workplace because they don't understand some of the things they do to their coworkers who are men that other men would never do to each other. And men feel disrespected, and then they sabotage their own careers in the workplace because of that. But a lot of that topic is covered in the book as well.
See, Jay?
Yes?
I'm wondering if we have time, if we could hear from some people who had the longer marriages.
Sure.
What's been some of their secret to making it? Since we all are in this together, you know, we're all we all have our challenges.
Anybody want to volunteer that information? Since you're starting, maybe you want to. You've been married for a few years.
I'd rather listen.
Like on the farm, you know, starting up another vehicle with a tractor. Oh, that could be interesting if you don't have all the rules. He knew what gear to put it in, and he knew how fast to go, and not pull the chain tight but quick. I didn't know that, you know? You just assumed that
Someone
I would
else
know.
has that basic
Or
knowledge
vice
that they've
versa.
acquired.
Yeah, vice versa. I can just assume that he knows how to do something in the kitchen, and he goes, huh? You know? We call it school, and I think that makes it a teamwork thing.
You have an example, Trudy?
Well, I just felt that couples should talk as much as possible, no matter.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you disagree on something or you're mad at each other, you don't see each other. Just gradually it'll just build up.
Yeah. Remember now, well, if you read Men from Mars, Women from Venus, men are very concise in their communication, where women can just talk and talk and talk and share their emotions. That's how they deal with problems. Whereas men go into what they call the nothing box. Women probably don't understand this, but men do have a spot in their brain. It's called the nothing box. And you don't believe that because you're multitaskers. You can be doing several things at once. A guy can actually be doing nothing. It's true. And when you ask the husband, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? Nothing. come on! And you're trying to get the truth out, because you think he's got something's going on here, he's holding back on me, he's not, because when you're quiet, when women tend to be quiet, there's usually something chewing at them, and they want to talk it out, they want their husbands to listen to them, and to communicate with them a little bit. But that doesn't, so you have to understand, some of those tools make that work better, and like I said, Dr. Gray lines that out pretty good in minute for us,
Nothing box.
yeah. Just like, and I hear it all commercial, you know, men are kind of one track, you know, we're watching TV, we're on that one subject, we're watching the game on TV, we're on that one subject. If you're gonna start talking about plans for the next weekend, and we're into the game, we're probably not gonna remember it. And when that event comes up, remember I told you, you did? Yeah, the game was on. Oh, that's why. Do you have something else?
I just think that men assume that women always know what they're doing and talking about, a lot of times they really don't.
Well, when it comes to, I think it's what Louise is referring to here, and Stacy and I can kind of relate when we were building the house. I'd ask her to help me move something, and I just assumed that she knew where to put it. You know, we're going to put this over here, and she's like, what? Where are we putting this at? And I get a little frustrated. No, it's obvious. We're putting on a sawhorse right here. Well, why didn't you say that up front that you wanted to move this onto the sawhorse? Instead of just saying, grab that in, let's go.
You know, I think that you're glossing over what he said. I think he meant what he said, what everybody, and I think, and I agree with it, sometimes I just need to talk, to figure out what's really going on, and as I say it, I think, oh, I don't really mean that, but, so, yeah, I just sometimes just start chewing it out, and in the end I'll get to what I really think. In the beginning, I didn't know.
A lot of times you probably don't understand. Well, you probably gotta be told. So.
Yeah. Anybody else got anything? Okay, well, I guess that kind of ends the session. Like I said, we can, more topics on this, let me know if there's something you want to go into in more depth.
I got one thing.
Yes.
After Jake came back from this, I went on the website and looked, because I wanted to go to one, and it didn't work out, but I saw the word cruise.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did some research on it, and in February of 2014, there's a cruise from Miami down to Grand Turk. It's a 2-day down and a day there and 2-day back. It's over the Valentine's kind of thing. So if you like cruises, I think it's $1,900 is the base deal. But you're gonna have this kind of a deal. So it's not the gambling thing or the just eat till you're sick kind of only.
It's not, the whole week, the whole cruise is not spent in the classroom. You'll have time to do other things.
It sounds really good. So, thought I'd throw that out there.
Sure.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm gonna start folding things up. If anybody else wants to share anything else, otherwise we do have church starting, what, 20 minutes?
Yep.
Thank you.